What is up, everyone? I hope you're doing well. Today I am doing an episode on energy system development. I'm going to define the three energy systems. We're going to talk about general consensus with the energy systems, and then we're going to talk about VO2, why it matters, some common misconceptions, and then we're going to talk about my theory, my views on conditioning. In my opinion, there are only actually two energy systems, and they're related to the types of muscle fibers we have. Make sure that you like and subscribe. It helps out a lot. I want to build this up so that I can help educate lots more people. And if you aren't already, follow me on Instagram to see more. I hope you enjoy. What is up, everyone? I hope you are doing well today. Evan Hill Trains is back on YouTube. We have the kinesiologist shirt on today because I'm going to be dropping some knowledge for you, all right? Today's video, as you can tell from the title and the thumbnail, is going to be about energy systems. So this is one topic I've been wanting to cover for some time now, and I've had conversations with lots of different people about it. The general consensus for this is that there's three energy systems. When we're trying to develop them, actually was surprising for me when I did my S&C cert a couple of weeks ago that they actually suggested training at the top and bottom ends of that. So very high intensity and then more long, slow, continuous training, so that we're getting a really good aerobic stimulus and then a really good alactic stimulus. Now, it's funny that they train on two ends of the spectrum, and I'll get to that later. These three defined systems, let's go over that first. You have the alactic, the anaerobic glycolysis, and the aerobic system. Right? There's a couple of different subdivisions of each of those, but for now, that's all you need to know. They're defined by duration, intensity, energy source. So obviously they provide energy by different means. So your alactic system is also known as your ATP-PC system. That is a lot of that comes from the breaking and then rebinding of phosphocreatine bonds and that sort of thing with ATP, which everyone should know by now. And then your anaerobic glycolysis, or your lactic system, of course, is just using glucose as fuel. And part of that is there's lactate creation, there's NADH creation, and there's acidity building up. So that's why we get lactic baths and lactic sessions and that sort of thing. And then for aerobic, it's just oxidation. So we're bouncing O2, we're bouncing oxygen around in mitochondria, and then boom, energy comes from that. Simple as that. When we talk about duration, it's up to 10 seconds for ATP-PC, up to 2 minutes for the lactic system, and then after that, it is primarily aerobic system. I think the best thing for us to talk about after that is what is VO2, because this is one of the most common measures of fitness, and it's misunderstood in my opinion, because I think a lot of people just think the fitter you are, the higher your VO2, but a lot of times when we compare team sport athletes who are very fit to endurance athletes who are very fit, there's a different actual profile. And I've also been seeing a lot of content around CrossFitters actually not having great VO2 maxes. And no one's going to say that a CrossFitter isn't fit. They just use different energy systems, okay? And this will still fit into my theory later on. We're going to talk about how there's only two later on, but now let's just keep establishing what we are talking about. VO2 max is how much oxygen your body can actually use at maximal intensity. What is the absolute maximum amount of oxygen your body can take in and turn into energy and turn into work and performance? When we test VO2 max, we use normally max treadmill tests, max bike tests, and we have gas exchange masks, or whatever those bags are called. Anyone who's done exercise science knows what I'm talking about. And we measure the actual O2 to CO2 ratio, and then you can do a ton of rubbish, crazy maths to figure out how much oxygen people actually sucked in and used in a certain amount of time. Just because we test like that doesn't mean that's the best way to build VO2. I think a lot of people get that impression, is they see really hard VO2 max testing. We're like, all right, that must be how you build greater oxygen uptake ability. So the ability to use oxygen must come from max efforts. That is not the case. Okay, so your high intensity interval training is not going to be the best thing for you to do to improve your ability to use oxygen. All right, slow continuous training is the mitochondria king. So this comes back to our aerobic system. My point is, slow continuous training is the mitochondrial king because you are only using your aerobic system. It's the primary system. It's being stressed to a maximal extent. When you start to go faster and faster, it is suppressed by the fatigue from fast twitch fibers and from the dominance of the lactic system, okay? So you're not going to be maximally working your aerobic system anymore. And that aerobic system is creating energy from the mitochondria bumping the little electrons around, and then boom, they shoot out energy, okay? That all comes from oxygen, breaking it up, metabolizing it, and then each mitochondria is pumping out energy. So it takes oxygen, it goes through the mitochondria, there's a very complicated process, and then it shoots out oxygen. Nothing else does that. Literally nothing else does that. So the only way to turn oxygen into energy is to have more mitochondria, okay? That is why the long, slow, continuous training is so superior for it, okay? Because we are putting maximal amounts of stress on the mitochondria instead of adding in demands for your fast twitch muscle fibers, okay? Your fast twitch muscle fibers will be turning glucose into energy, okay? They take glucose. There's once again, it's very complicated. There's a ton of little different reactions that happen to then shoot out energy, okay? Slow twitch, mitochondria, energy, okay? Fast twitch, glucose, energy. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's get to my point here, how there is only two energy systems, right? There are only two energy systems because there are only two types of muscle fiber. And you're only going to get a significant contribution from two. A lot of people love to talk about how significant the lactic system is, how much the alactic system is, but for 99% of people, it's not going to do anything, okay? So if we're talking about wellness, fitness, health, longevity, and then the 80% of performance, it's all going to be lactic buffering capacity, which is your lactic system, and aerobic fitness. The vast majority of people who actually need an elite alactic system and an elite ability to turn over phosphocreatine and keep turning it into ATP rapidly are track sprinters and track sprinters. so sprint athletes, okay? Think about how much of the population of athletes is made up by sprint athletes. Very, very little. Of course, there's the Olympics, which is almost centered around it. But if we're going to try and take a big scope, again, it's hugely dominated by aerobic and lactic buffering capacity. So to me, there's two energy systems. These are the people I work with. So only two energy systems matter. And it comes back to slow twitch muscle fibers and fast twitch muscle fibers. And it makes it really easy to train. People love to make training energy systems extremely complicated. I've said this in posts multiple times. You need 3 runs: a long, slow, continuous run, a moderate run, and a maximum effort run. Now, Evan, why would you do that? Those are needs. You can get away with 2. You can do long continuous and flat out. You could do 2 continuous runs a week where you are primarily focusing on one system, which is really easy to do. You can do 2, 3, 4 of those sorts of continuous runs where it is zone 2 and zone 3, easy to recover from, doesn't get in the way of other training. And then you do 1 very high intensity training session, which works on buffering. Buffering capacity is still very important. If you can't deal with lactate and you can't shuttle lactate and you can't use it as fuel, lactate is fuel, then you cannot perform in sport. Like, you need to be able to do that as a team sport athlete. That's how we would train it, right? You need long, continuous running or biking so that you are stressing and really placing demands on your mitochondria and then stimulating the creation of more. The faster you go, the greater amount your fast twitch fibers have to take over, okay? So going faster doesn't make things more aerobic, it makes it less. The only way you can progress at the same fitness level is by increasing distance and duration, okay? That stresses your mitochondria more, it stresses your slow twitch muscle fibers more, and then they can respond to that, okay? That's where it gets tricky with load management and where it can be helpful to work with people and have someone who's tracking your performance as things go. Again, with fast twitch, sure, you can, I liked how the ASCA described it. There is producing lactate and there's actually sustaining it. I personally believe that sustaining lactate is going to be more beneficial for team sport athletes. Those 2 minute, 3 minute efforts where you are building, holding, and then you rest and let it all go away is a really good approach to your fast twitch conditioning, okay? So you can do that with a lot of one after another efforts, like your repeat sprint intervals, where you go 10 seconds, 10 seconds, 10 seconds, 10 seconds, 10 seconds with incomplete rest, so that you step up, and you hold, okay? So your lactate gets up, hold it there, rest, let it come back down, and you do it once or twice more, okay? That's a really good point, is your high intensity training, it should be quite low volume. This is where the differences between people can really show. I think personally, I just cannot do more than 1 or 2 high intensity training sessions a week, but some people manage to get so fit just belting themselves every single session, okay? So that's why it's actually important to experiment with this a little bit, but it is also quite simple at the same time, a blueprint that works. Let's talk about an example weekly program and sort of talk through what I think is a really good way for a team sport athlete and a normal person to get fitter. Let's start with the normal person. Normal person doesn't need to do high intensity training. They don't need to. They can just get as aerobically fit as possible and they're going to feel amazing, all right? Energy levels, metabolic health go through the roof, all right? And all it takes is 2 to 4 runs a week, rides a week, that sort of thing. This is a really good opportunity to spread yourself out, to try some off-leg stuff, incline walking and running, all right? Don't toss in 15, 20 Ks a week of running when you haven't ran before, ever, okay? But that's gonna do it for you. You're gonna start feeling in 1 or 2 months' time, huge differences in energy levels and your ability to go about your day and still have energy left over. Okay, what exactly would these sessions look like? I normally like to go from fast to slow in my week, but it doesn't make a huge difference as long as you don't lactate bomb yourself. If you lactate bomb yourself on the first day of the week, you're not going to have a very good training week. That's the way I look at it. So do with that information what you will. It would depend on the approach they enjoy most. If they really enjoy having variation, then that's what you can do. You can throw in some repeats that are maybe just above that lactate, that aerobic threshold where you're just pushing it a tiny bit and giving nice adequate rest time so we're not building up a lot of lactic. That's something you could do early in the week that's a bit higher speed and provides variation. And then let's say you go for a bike ride Tuesday or Wednesday. Let's say Wednesday if we're going to train 3 times a week, and then Friday or Saturday you do your nice long run, okay? So that's when you want to push well past 30 minutes if possible so that you are stressing your slow twitch muscle fibers. Now let's go into what a good week for a team sport athlete looks like. I really like repeat sprints early in the week, again, dosed well and right on that line where it's a lactic bath versus just good hit, okay? We want them pushing hard, breathing hard, but not super lactic-y, so that we're reproducing really good quality sprints. What does that look like? It means that your amount of sprints changes depending on the fitness of the person, okay? If they're super fit, they can do more sprints and keep the quality high. If they aren't fit, they can't do as many sprints and keep the quality high. So if you think about a fit and an unfit person, the fit person can do way more sprints in a row at 90% without fatiguing, right? They can keep the quality high because they have the aerobic fitness underpinning to keep replenishing, and they have the lactic buffering ability so that they can hold it, so that that lactic acid isn't stopping their body from keeping good movement patterns. The unfit person, sure, they can do one flat out sprint. They might be able to do two, but 3, 4, and 5, it can really start to fall apart. And that's what I see with the big boys of rugby. That's why it's so important to have considerations for the big boys. It's because, it's harsh to call them unfit. They've just got a lot more weight to move around, and so they need considerations. Draws similar consideration to people with lower fitness, right? You need to give them appropriate amount of sprints so that they can keep the quality high. If you want to lactic bath them. I normally don't like it, okay? That's session 1. Session 2, I'll normally go something thresholdy that might end up in that no man's land. That's fine though, okay? Depending on what phase in the season you're in, that threshold stuff's good. They need the lactic capacity. Early in the season, I might go zone 2, proper easy, sprint repeats, and then a long run, okay? You get non-fatiguing, fatiguing, sort of fatiguing, right? Okay, we've got something that's not going to have any impact on the training week, something that will have a small impact, and then something that, depending on how good your pacing is, may or may not, and will give you a really nice aerobic juice, okay? That's if we have an aerobic focus. As we get closer to the season and we're like, all right, let's get these guys match fit, it's repeat sprints, it's something middle ground, and then you guys should be doing cardio on your own on the weekends, okay? Because then you get really good aerobic focus, really good speed focus and ability to repeat sprint, hold high intensities, hold quality, and then some lactic buffering. That's that threshold is where you may do a moderate distance, moderate intensity run where you're just pushing it that little bit, you're holding your elevated lactate, or you may do those 2-3 minute efforts that I was talking about at the start where we're building, okay? So that's the 2 breakdowns for what a good week would look like for an average person and for an athlete, okay? So little changes. 1, buffering capacity is important, and the other, it's more just about, let's just get them feeling good. Let's make life feel a little bit easier. Right? How good is that? That is going to be everything for the episode on energy system development. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something. I've been wanting to cover this topic for the longest time, like I said, and I hope you guys enjoy and can use it in your own training. Remember, we have 2 main energy systems, so depending on your goals, you may only need 2 types of runs. Anyways, follow me on Instagram, subscribe, like if you liked the video. And I'll see you in about a week. Maybe I'll record another video while I'm sat here.